Chapter 562. The lively and noisy celebration did not end until 11 p.m., and hundreds of bottles of champagne had been opened. The bustling atmosphere dispersed, but the crew members of A Chinese Ghost Story stayed behind. That was because there was still one last procedure that had not been completed, and that was to give out red packets. Lu Chen and Chen Fei were together. The latter carried a heavy bag and then sent red packets that had already been sealed to every crew member, including the director, assistant director, stage manager, cameraman, lighting technician, art designer. Of course, the most important actors were also there. When the filming of A Chinese Ghost Story encountered difficulties, the crew members were in turmoil. Some members chose to leave because they were afraid of trouble, but most people still persisted. Lu Chen promised them that after A Chinese Ghost Story was released, he would give 10% of the Hong Kong box office to all the crew members to thank them for their unrelenting support and hard work. Although there was still a long time before A Chinese Ghost Story would be released in Hong Kong, Lu Chen had a good reason to use this celebration to distribute a portion of the rewards to everyone in advance. Thank you, young Master Lu. Thank you, boss. Thank you, lady boss. The crew members who received the red packets were all beaming with joy. All of them could not wait to open the envelopes, and the banquet hall was filled with an extremely happy atmosphere. Ma Rongjin also received his own reward. When he took on the role of Yan Qixia, he was extremely down and out. He was acting as a group actor in the Lion Rock Film City and almost did not even have enough to eat, so he basically did not have any requirements for remuneration. Now that he had taken on this role with a distinct personality, Ma Rongjin could be said to have really turned over a new leaf. Other people took the initiative to approach him and offered him remuneration that was dozens of times higher than what he had received at that time. Since the release of A Chinese Ghost Story, apart from Lu Chen and Chen Fei, only two people had become famous. One was Nie Mingzhu, who played Nie Xiaoqian, and the other was Ma Rongjin. After many children were taken by their families to watch A Chinese Ghost Story, Yan Qixia was the only one who left the deepest impression on them. When they went home and played with their peers, it became very cool for them to wave the Dharma artifacts they had bought and shout, "Heaven and earth are infinite, and the universe is infinite." In the shops around the cinema, Yan Qixia's doll was selling like hotcakes. The sword and talismans that accompanied it were also selling like hotcakes. Therefore, it went without saying that he received the biggest red packet that night. After seeing the amount on the check, Ma Rongjin's feelings were really indescribable. His hand holding the check was trembling slightly. It wasn't that Ma Rongjin had never seen money before. When he was in the limelight, his personal salary was as high as a few million. This check wasn't considered much. Now, Ma Rongjin was renting a shabby house in Tianshui. The monthly rent of 1,000 yuan was enough for him to make ends meet. This check was enough for him to move to Kowloon, new territories, and settle down. He no longer needed to worry about making a living. Compared to the salary given to him at the beginning, Lu Chen was really too generous. Ma Rongjin had been in the industry for decades and had been in the industry for decades. He had seen countless bosses, but there were really few like Lu Chen who kept his promise. While admiring him, he found an opportunity to talk to Lu Chen in private. "Young Master Lu, I want to ask, when will the sequel of A Chinese Ghost Story be filmed? A movie that sold so well must be filmed for a sequel." Ma Rongjin was extremely grateful to Lu Chen for his appreciation. Therefore, no matter how high the price others offered to poach him, his first choice was still Lu Chen's studio. Lu Chen understood what Ma Rongjin meant and replied with a smile, "The sequel will be filmed in at least a few months. Uncle Ma, if someone offers you a high price, you should accept it if you can. Don't worry about us first." Also, after a pause, Lu Chen continued, "I'm going to transfer the copyright of the sequel to Jiayang Pictures, so you can find an agent to discuss the specific contract with them. I believe that Boss Zhou won't let you suffer a loss." For Lu Chen, it was enough to make A Chinese Ghost Story. If he wanted to make a new movie, there were too many scripts and themes to choose from. There was no need to rely on his past. However, it was very suitable to sell it to his partner, Jiayang Pictures. The latter would also shoot it with all his heart as if he had found a treasure. Ma Rongjin was a little disappointed. He really wanted to repay Lu Chen and wanted to sign under Lu Chen's studio. He didn't expect that Lu Chen didn't have any intention of doing so, nor did he ask for repayment. He gave him the greatest freedom. This made him feel both touched and pressure he owed too much. Ma Rongjin could only say, "Then young Master Lu, if you need me in the future, just let me know. I'll be there at any time. I really can't think of anything else to repay your kindness." Lu Chen smiled and said, "Uncle Ma, you're too kind. If you need me, I won't be polite." Ma Rongjin nodded her head heavily. After giving out the red packet, the celebration was officially over. The song ended and the people dispersed. "It's really not easy for Uncle Ma," Chen Fei followed Lu Chen to send Ma Rongjin off. Looking at the departing figure, she said with emotion, "I hope he can polish his eyes and find a reliable agent." It was common for star artists to be cheated by their agents, but it was rare for them to be cheated to the extent of Ma Rongjin's original agent. Although the other party eventually suffered retribution, Ma Rongjin was also unable to recover from the setback and wasted more than 10 years. "He probably wants to sign with you, right?" In response to Chen Fei's speculation, Lu Chen nodded and said, "He should have such an idea. Unfortunately, his image has been fixed, and he will only play a supporting role in the future." Lu Chen knew very well that for Ma Rongjin, Yan Qixia was undoubtedly the peak of his acting career, and there was no possibility of surpassing it in the future. In the future, it would be difficult for him to get rid of the impression that this character left on the audience. Although Lu Chen recommended Ma Rongjin to sign under Jiayang Pictures, this was his best choice. Lu Chen, while the two were talking, a pleasant voice came from behind. Lu Chen turned around and saw Nie Mingzhu walking towards him with her assistant. She stopped in front of Lu Chen and asked, "Are you and Sister Fei going back to the capital?" Lu Chen smiled and said, "Yes." Hong Kong was the starting point of his film career, but it was definitely not the end. The capital was where his foundation was. The most important thing was that A Chinese Ghost Story had basically obtained the quota for the new film support policy. Therefore, it was time to return to the mainland to launch a new publicity plan. Nie Mingzhu turned her face and asked, "If I also go to the capital, will you welcome me?" Lu Chen and Chen Fei looked at each other and smiled. They replied in unison, "Welcome." Chapter 563. Hong Kong's new film support policy, which was also known as the Hong Kong Film Revitalization Support Plan, was released in 2016. The core of this policy was to create 100 excellent Hong Kong films and recreate the prosperity of the film and television industry. The Hong Kong government had set a special budget for this and reached a cooperation agreement with the relevant domestic departments to recommend 20 Hong Kong films, including Sino-Hong Kong co-productions, to be released in the mainland every year. This was the so-called Green Channel for Hong Kong films. According to the agreement reached between the two parties, the recommended Hong Kong films could enjoy a basic guarantee in addition to enjoying the box office share and preferential tax policies. At present, the domestic film market had become the second largest box office producer in the world, second only to the United States. The competition was naturally extremely fierce, and the pattern of competition had long been established. Unless a newcomer had a strong background and financial resources, it was undoubtedly a fool's dream to squeeze in and get a share of the pie. The domestic film industry occupied by the big shots made it difficult for small and medium-sized film and television institutions to survive. If they did not want to become the former subordinates and be willing to be exploited, they could only take the new media channel and make the so-called online movies and dramas. Hong Kong's new film support policy was equivalent to prying open a crack in the big market that had been divided up. Therefore, when the news had just spread, many film and television institutions ran to Hong Kong to seek opportunities, including some powerful large film companies. They had joined hands with their local counterparts in Hong Kong to make new films. In the end, 178 Hong Kong films, co-productions, applied to the Hong Kong government's designated review agency, the Hong Kong Film Association, for a quota. Among them, 120 passed the preliminary review. 120 films competed for 20 spots, and the ratio was 6:1. The competition could be said to be cruel. But no matter how cruel it was, as the best box office performance and the best reputation in Hong Kong at the beginning of 2017, A Chinese Ghost Story had already firmly locked in a spot. Even if the final list had not been officially released, there was basically no objection in the industry. The reason was simple. If A Chinese Ghost Story was not qualified, which film was more qualified? If the Hong Kong Film Association really blocked A Chinese Ghost Story at the door, the so-called new policy would be a joke. Of course, Lu Chen would not be complacent because of this. He had done all the work that needed to be done, and then he would focus his work back on China. Getting the quota did not mean that everything was fine. Because it was her first time starting a business, and she had the investment of two friends, Lu Chen and Chen Feier, she walked very steadily step by step, and could even be said to be cautious, so it was not until now that she entered the actual operating state of the project. For such a long period, Star Factory led by Tian was of course well prepared. Not only did they set up a team with rich talent show experience, but they also reached a cooperation agreement with Zhidong Satellite TV. The Voice of China was planned and produced by Star Factory Media and was scheduled to be broadcast in prime time on Zhidong Satellite TV. What the two sides signed was not the usual buyout agreement, but a rare advertising share based on ratings. On the way to the company, Tian briefly introduced the situation in the past 6 months to the two shareholders. Although she complained about how hard it was, how difficult it was to start a business alone, and how she wanted to give up several times when she encountered difficulties, it could be seen that she really wanted to break out of a new world of her own and enjoyed it. Now that everything is ready, we only need one thing. The full set of planning documents for The Voice of China had long been completed, the program team was fully staffed, the cooperation agreement was signed, and official production could start at any time. It could be said that everything was ready. There was only one problem, and that was that the list of the 4 judges had not been confirmed. This problem was neither big nor small. In fact, as early as 2 months ago, Tian had communicated with Lu Chen and Chen Feier, but it had not really been decided. When it came to this issue, Tian, who was already burning with anxiety, turned into a domineering CEO. Neither of you can run away. You must help, otherwise don't blame me for falling out. Also, you have to help me invite 2 more big names in the circle. They must be at the level of a heavenly king or queen. Chapter 564. Since the popularity of reality talent shows, there have been a lot of talent shows conducted by various domestic TV stations in recent years. Some have been a great success, while others have had little impact. The situation can be described as ice and fire. In addition to the production level and creative concept of the show itself, the guest judges and mentors are also important factors that have a direct impact on the ratings. The more famous they are, the more they can pull up the ratings. The creativity of The Voice of China is good enough, and there is no problem with the production and broadcasting. The choice of mentors has become one of the keys to the success or failure of the show, so Tian attaches great importance to it. Chen Feier wondered, didn't I ask you to contact Big Brother Tan? The Big Brother Tan that Chen Feier mentioned is, of course, Tan Hong. With Tan Hong's status in the circle, he is absolutely qualified. Tian was discouraged. I went to Beijing to see Teacher Tan, but Teacher Tan doesn't want to participate in variety shows anymore. Originally, Tan Hong didn't like to participate in variety shows. The last time he served as a judge of Singing China, it was entirely because of human relations. Now that he is basically retired, it is normal for Tian to be rejected. Oh, then, Chen Feier was also in a dilemma. It's true that she has a wide network in the circle, but she can't casually invite a real big shot to come over. If her schedule is not full, can she be called a big shot? She complained to Tian, why didn't you say so earlier? Tian has a reason, I don't want to trouble a busy person like you every time. This time, I really have no choice. She is a strong person. When she encounters difficulties, she first thinks of solving the problem by herself, rather than asking for help from others. It's just that this trouble is a bit big. Tian's family background is not bad, and she also has her own connections in the circle. But to invite a big shot to join her company's talent show, she really doesn't have enough weight. After hitting a few walls, Tian reluctantly gave up and could only turn to Chen Fei for help. Lu Chen thought for a moment and said, "Let me try." Chen Fei asked curiously, "Who are you looking for?" Lu Chen replied, "Big brother Lu Gangsheng." Ah! With a scream, the BMW that was driving shook violently and almost crashed into the guardrail next to it. Caught off guard, Lu Chen and Chen Fei broke out in cold sweat. Tian, who was driving, hurriedly stabilized the steering wheel and hurriedly asked, "Is it really Lu Gangsheng?" Letting out a long breath, Lu Chen raged, "Drive properly. Are you trying to kill me?" If there had been a car accident just now, the headlines tomorrow would have been about him and Chen Fei. It was better to save the headlines if possible. Whoever wanted it could take it. Tian stuck out her tongue, slowed down the car, and said guiltily, "Who told you to suddenly reveal such a big news? I'm a fan of Lu Gangsheng. If I can really invite him, if they could invite Lu Gangsheng to be a judge, they would not have to worry about the viewership ratings of The Voice of China." That was because this Xiangjiang superstar had never appeared in any talent show in the country. At that time, it would definitely cause a sensation. Don't even think about it. Lu Chen rudely interrupted her sweet dreams. "Big brother Hong Kong definitely won't be able to come. I want to ask him to help me ask around and see if we can invite a Xiangjiang senior to participate." Of the 4 mentors of China's Voice, he and Chen Fei already had 2 seats each. It would undoubtedly be more appropriate to invite another Xiangjiang singer. Xiangjiang's pop music was irreplaceable in the Chinese music industry. Oh, Tian shut her mouth, feeling a little wronged. Chen Fei could not bear to see this and pushed Lu Chen, who did not know how to be gentle with the fairer sex. "Then you should contact Big Brother Hong Kong." Lu Chen nodded and took out his phone to call Lu Gangsheng. He contacted the other party's private number, which could only be reached by the number in his address book. After a while, the call connected and Lu Gangsheng's unique voice came through the phone. "Lu Chen?" "Hello, Big Brother Hong Kong." Lu Chen hurriedly greeted him, exchanged a few words with the Heavenly King superstar, and then explained his purpose of coming. Tian was a little resentful after being scolded by Lu Chen just now, but when she heard that Lu Chen was talking to Lu Gangsheng, she could not help but prick up her ears, looking like she was itching to hear it. Lu Chen and Lu Gangsheng chatted for a few minutes before ending the conversation. Chen Fei asked, "What did he say?" This was also the question that Tian was most concerned about. Lu Gangsheng could not hope for too much, but it would be great to be able to invite a big shot from Xiangjiang's pop music industry. Lu Chen said, "Big Brother Hong Kong is willing to help and asked me to wait for news. It should be very soon." Chen Fei smiled and said, "That's good." If Lu Gangsheng came forward, basically no one in Xiangjiang's entertainment industry would refuse to give him face, unless they really had no time or schedule to come to the mainland to participate in the program. This superstar was also a warm-hearted person. After agreeing to help, he was very efficient. Tian's car had just been parked in the parking lot downstairs of her company when she called Lu Chen's cell phone. "Well, thank you, Brother Sheng, thank you so much." After ending the call again, Lu Chen's expression was a little strange. Chen Fei asked with concern, "What's wrong? Is there any trouble?" Lu Chen shook his head and said, "Big Brother Hong Kong helped us invite a mentor." Tian finally couldn't help asking, "Who is it?" Lu Chen smiled and said, "Guess?" Chen Fei rolled his eyes at him and said angrily, "How can we guess? Hong Kong's pop music once had an extremely glorious period. At that time, a large number of excellent singers emerged, and there were at least dozens of them who were well known to the mainland fans." Lu Chen did not keep them in suspense and directly revealed the answer, "It's Sister Shifang." Ah! This time, Chen Fei and Tian exclaimed together. Fortunately, they were not driving. Chen Fei was surprised, while Tian was pleasantly surprised. Never in their wildest dreams did they expect that Lu Gangsheng would actually invite Shifang. Shifang's status in Xinjiang's pop music scene was no less than Lu Gengsheng's. She was also a queen-level figure in the music industry that mainland fans were familiar with. She had once held 2 concert tours in the mainland and had a great influence. Although Shifang temporarily left the music industry due to illness a few years ago, her reputation and popularity were still there, and she still had a large number of fans who liked her. If China's Voice could invite this person as a mentor, they could save millions in publicity fees. Tian was overjoyed. That's really great. I have to revise the publicity plan. Lu Chen plus Chen Feier, plus Shifang, it was not as simple as 1 + 1 + 1 is equal to 3. Quantitative change led to qualitative change. However, there was still a question. Who should we invite as the last mentor? Tian blinked her eyes. Her anticipation for Lu Chen directly exploded. He could always create miracles. Chapter 565. Who will be the last mentor? Big eyes blinked. Tian's innocent and expectant look made Lu Chen speechless. Wasn't it enough to invite a real big shot? Chen Fei grinned. Lu Chen had a feeling that he had dug a hole and fell into it, so he simply helped her to the end. I'll make another call. In fact, he had already thought of another big name in the music industry. Brother Liao Jia, long time no see. How have you been recently? This big name in the music industry was Liao Jia, a real veteran who had played rock and roll, and also a senior in the industry. Lu Chen and Liao Jia had a good relationship. When they were in Beijing, the latter often called Lu Chen to invite him to drink. But friendship was friendship, and Lu Chen was not completely sure that he could invite this old guy with a strong personality, because Liao Jia was disdainful of the popular entertainment variety shows in China. Who told him to give Tian an idea to open a company and invest in it? Liao Jia was very dissatisfied. Brother Lu Chen, if you have something to say, just say it. Do we need to play this game? Lu Chen said with a smile, then I'll say it directly. I have a friend who is going to make a singing reality show. For mentors are still missing one, so I'm looking for you. F***CK. Liao Jia scolded and asked, who are the other 3? When Lu Chen heard that there was hope, he quickly replied, me, Fei, and Shifang. Shifang? Across the phone, Lu Chen could also feel Liao Jia's surprise. Shifang from Hong Kong? Yes, said Lu Chen. Brother Lu Gengsheng introduced me. F***CK. Liao Jia scolded again, you're getting bigger and bigger now. Lu Chen asked, Brother Liao Jia, can you come? Liao Jia said, count me in. By the way, who is your friend? Lu Chen explained, her name is Tian. She used to be a host at Zhidong TV station. She resigned to open a new company. F***CK. Liao Jia cursed, I know, isn't it the beauty you saved last time? Did I become your mistress? Brat, you're pretty capable. You actually dared to hide it from Fei, His voice was so loud that Chen Feier and Tian, who were also in the elevator, could hear him clearly. Tian was so embarrassed that she couldn't even lift her head. Chen Fei couldn't stand it anymore. He grabbed Lu Chen's phone and shouted into the phone, Liao Jia, what nonsense are you talking about? This company is owned by the 3 of us. She instantly transformed into a boss queen and harshly scolded Liao Jia. When the elevator reached the top floor and the door opened, Chen Fei returned the phone to Lu Chen. Hello? Liao Jia was still there, but he seemed to have suffered quite a blow. His voice was much softer. Got it. Get someone to contact my manager to set up a schedule. Also, there's something else. He seemed to be a little embarrassed to say it. Lu Chen stood at the door of the elevator and said with a smile, Brother Liao, if you have something to say, just say it. Do we need to play this game? F***CK. Liao Jia's scolding was out of breath, but he still said, are you and Fei going to shoot a TV series this year? I want a role. The 2 TV series, Autumn in My Heart and Full House of Romance, starring Lu Chen and Chen Feier, won extremely high ratings in China and South Korea, and became the new benchmark of domestic TV series. Among them, Autumn in My Heart was currently popular in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Australia and several Southeast Asian countries, and became the #1 in the ratings. The overseas copyright of Full House of Romance, therefore became popular and was fought over by many TV stations. With the success of these two TV series, Lu Chen's studio became a shining star in the film and television circle. When Lu Chen intended to shoot the third TV series this year, You from the Star, the search for partners was simply like a school of carps crossing the river, breaking the threshold of the studio. As for those who wanted to show their faces in the new TV series, there were even more people. Autumn in My Heart and Full House of Romance made many newcomers popular. Many people in and out of the circle came to him in a roundabout way, which made Lu Shi, who was in charge of the capital, very worried. There were too many monks and not enough porridge. There are too many monks and not enough porridge. The script of You from the Star has been written by Lu Chen. The roles in it are limited, and it is impossible to meet everyone's requirements. Unless it is a request that cannot be refused, they will all be declined. But since Liao Jia asked, Lu Chen must give him face. No problem, as long as brother Liao Jia wants it, I can add a role for you. Lu Chen thought that Liao Jia wanted to play it himself, so it was easy to let him play a guest role. It was nothing more than a few changes. It's not me, Liao Jia was a little embarrassed. It's a girl. She graduated from Chinese opera several years ago. Her acting skills are not a problem, he explained a few words, which made Lu Chen understand something. Brother Liao, is this sister-in-law? Ahem, ahem, ahem. Liao Jia coughed hard a few times and said, don't make wild guesses. Tell me if it's okay or not. Lu Chen said with a smile, of course it's okay. Let her agent contact our studio. The role is easy to discuss. Unexpectedly, this rock and roll veteran had also come to Spring. Graduated from Chinese opera a few years ago. Wasn't that young grass? Lu Chen's smile was very ambiguous, which made Chen Fei vigilant. What sister-in-law? What are you playing with Liao Jia? She had always been upset about Liao Jia taking Lu Chen out to drink. She didn't have a good impression of this guy. Lu Chen quickly explained a few words, and then said to Tian, this time everyone is here. As for the other two mentors, it was a pleasant surprise, a big one at that. Everyone knew that Liao Jia was a famous rock and roll veteran in the domestic music industry. He was the spiritual idol of many people. Even if there were no good new works in recent years, he still had countless fans. Shi Fang, the Queen of Hong Kong, was well known. A few years ago, she temporarily retired from the music industry due to illness. But now, if she came to the mainland to open a concert, it was guaranteed that there would be a lot of people coming to support her no matter how high the ticket price was. Most importantly, these two big shots seemed to be participating in a talent show for the first time as mentors and judges, which was undoubtedly an excellent selling point in terms of publicity. In that case, the viewership ratings of China's Voice were nothing to worry about. When the news was released, there would definitely be a sea of singers coming to sign up for the show. Everyone was excited just thinking about it and could only express their inner excitement by clapping desperately. Morale reached its peak. Seeing that the encouragement was almost done, Tian smiled and waved her hand and said, well, it's enough for everyone to know about this news. Don't spread it around. When the company officially makes the announcement, everyone can work with peace of mind. The employees agreed and returned to their positions, but it was obvious that they could not return to work all at once. Tian accompanied Lu Chen and Chen Fei, to inspect the various departments of the company one by one. The office building rented by Star Factory, Rongjing Building, was located in the CBD of Shihu District. It was located in the bustling area of the main urban area of Hangzhou. It was very close to the West Lake Scenic Area and the surrounding transportation was extremely convenient. Of course, the rent was very expensive. Tian chose to open a company here for a reason. It was because Zhedong TV station was next to it, and there were a large number of film and television industry-related organizations around it, so they could enjoy the benefits of the cluster. Tian's boldness was also very big. The office building was rented on the highest floor of Rongjing Building, with an area of more than 400 square meters. The company had marketing, public relations, publicity, design, production, and other departments. At present, the number of employees was more than 50, and the scale was no less than some of the veteran peers. Of course, the larger the scale, the greater the expenses. Although Star Factory had also taken on some outsourced projects since its establishment, the real self-produced project had not yet started. At present, it was in a state of sitting idle. Therefore, Tian was trying her best to pull the two directors, Lu Chen and Chen Fei, over and officially finalize the project of The Voice of China. If you guys don't come, I'm really going to jump down from here. In the chairman's office, Tian complained to Chen Fei, do you two know that I haven't been sleeping well in recent months? I've lost a few pounds. My mom told me not to run this company anymore and to disband it earlier. Chen Fei held her in his arms and said with a smile, aren't we here now? It's been hard on you. Don't tire yourself out too much. Hire a professional manager to share the work. Tian explained, it's not easy to poach professional managers in this field. I've already hired a headhunter company to look for one. After The Voice of China is broadcasted, I believe it will be much easier. The current situation of domestic variety shows was that on one hand, there were all kinds of talent shows and entertainment shows emerging one after another. On the other hand, there was a lack of professional talents. When Tian founded Star Factory, it took a lot of effort to poach a group of people. It was all thanks to the two directors' reputable names. Otherwise, if she were to rely on herself, others might not have taken a liking to her. The composition of Star Factory Media's shares was very simple. Tian, as the chairman and legal representative, owned 40% of the shares. Lu Chen and Chen Fei, each owned 30%. The company's registered capital and actual investment were both 10 million. Although it had only been established for slightly more than half a year and was still considered a newcomer in the industry, Star Factory Media's starting point could be said to be very high. That was because the two directors were sufficiently famous. In fact, for Lu Chen and Chen Fei, their investment was more out of consideration for friendship. It was to support Tian's independent venture, and not because they wanted to make a lot of money. However, for Tian, this company was the focus of her life and career. Chapter 567. After staying in Hangzhou for 2 days, Lu Chen and Chen Fei returned to Beijing on March 4th. On the day of returning to Beijing, Lu Chen updated his blog, I'm back. It was a short blog post with 4 simple words, but it caused a great sensation in his fan circle, and it also attracted a lot of replies and ridicule. Boss, you're finally back. Sprinkle flowers and celebrate? When will you shoot a new TV series? I'm looking forward to it. Big Lu Chen, when will your movie be released in China? I want to see it. Don't run around when you're back. Update your blog more. I want to listen to new songs. Since Lu Chen went to Hong Kong to expand his career and shoot movies, his interaction with domestic fans has been a lot less. In addition, he doesn't like to participate in commercial performances or announcements, so it's inevitable to distance himself from his fans. For example, the live broadcast of Whale TV has basically stopped during this period of time. In fact, everyone knows that Lu Chen is working hard to make movies in Hong Kong. The official V of the studio will often release news, such as the highlights of his movies, stills, etc., but there is always a layer of separation and it feels relatively distant. Therefore, the die-hard fans are naturally quite resentful. Now that Lu Chen has finally returned, everyone can't help but pour out their grievances. Lu Chen also knew that he had neglected his fans during this period, so he communicated with his fans on his blog, while expressing his apology, while answering everyone's questions. To be continued. In order to communicate better, he simply logged into Whale TV at the same time and started a live broadcast. Lu Chen has a set of live broadcast equipment at home in Beijing, but he rarely uses it, only 2 or 3 times. This is great. Countless fans immediately poured into the live broadcast room. In just 10 minutes, the number of online users has soared to more than 300,000, and it is increasing at an alarming rate. Through live video chat, it is more convenient and direct to answer fans' questions, and it can also shorten the distance between each other. The 4th is Saturday, and the evening is the peak time for netizens to go online. The number of online users quickly exceeded the million mark. At the beginning of the live stream, the interaction was quite normal. Then, it was unknown who started it, but the messy and disorderly bullet screen quickly became orderly and consistent. The whole screen was filled with, "Sing a song. Sing a song. Sing a song." What followed was the rain of fish balls, which made the live broadcast extremely lively. Although Lu Chen was no longer short of live broadcast rewards, these fish balls represented the enthusiasm and sincerity of the fans. Although he had long been accustomed to similar scenes, he still felt warm and moved. These adorable fans were the greatest wealth that he had. After thinking about it, Lu Chen said to the microphone, "Well, since everyone is asking for it, I will sing a song for everyone. How about a new song?" All of a sudden, the bullet screen in the live streaming channel changed to a unanimous, "Good." Lu Chen laughed and said, "Then I'll say it on my blog first." He tapped on the keyboard and posted a new blog post on his blog, saying that he would sing a new song in the live streaming room to express his apology to his fans. As of today, the number of Lu Chen fans on Wave's blog is 29.37 million, close to the 30 million mark. The number of his blog fans is the same as Chen Fei, and the value is very high. Although some of them were increased through the recommendation activities of Wave's blog, the number of real fans is extremely considerable. Therefore, once this blog post was released, it immediately brought a lot of traffic to Whale TV. Many fans who originally didn't watch the live broadcast also downloaded the client or app of Whale TV. The effect of this blog post alone is completely worthy of the endorsement fee that Whale TV gave to Lu Chen. The number of online users in the live streaming room is off the charts. Lu Chen brought his most cherished guitar, the one given by Lu Shui. Holding this guitar, facing the camera and microphone, Lu Chen felt as if he had returned to the early summer of 2015, when he first came into contact with live streaming. Fate is so wonderful. Taking a deep breath, Lu Chen plucked the strings and played the prelude. He said into the microphone, "The name of this song is called Long Time No See, Friends, Long Time No See." It's been a long time since he sang like this. "I came here, your city, through the road you came from. Imagining the days without me. How lonely you are. Give you a photo, it was a street he was familiar with. Just without your picture, we can't go back to that day." The original barrage of comments in the live streaming room became quiet in the blink of an eye, because everyone was listening carefully, for fear of missing any precious notes. In less than 2 years since his debut, Lu Chen's popularity is enough to make some big shots in the circle envious. Some of his fans are accumulated through the 2 TV series, Autumn in My Heart and Full House of Romance, but the number of fans is undoubtedly more. As a fan of Lu Chen, there is no doubt that they are happy. Because Lu Chen is a rare young singer in the entertainment industry, and he is also a high-production type. His albums are all from his own hands, as if there are endless inspirations, bringing continuous pleasure and surprises to his fans. That's right. For example, tonight, they heard Lu Chen's new song for the first time. It's still so outstanding. Will you suddenly appear in the coffee shop on the corner? I will wear a smiling face, waving greetings, sitting and chatting with you. How I want to meet you, look at your recent changes, no longer talking about the past, just chatting, saying something to you, just saying something, long time no see. This song, Long Time No See, is a love song. The lyrics tell a very ordinary love story. However, Lu Chen plays and sings it to millions of fans online, which has a different meaning. Long Time No See, his playing is very simple, without any fancy skills. His singing is low and gentle, and the melody is like flowing water, slowly entangled. It is straightforward and not complicated, but the feelings are deep and restrained, and it goes straight to the depths of people's hearts. Listening to this song, it seems that people are experiencing the story in the song, returning to a familiar city and seeing familiar people again. The feelings that come from the heart can't be suppressed. There are a lot of things to say, but only one sentence rushed to the mouth: long time no see. Long time no see, this is a good song suitable for savoring in the middle of the night. When Lu Chen finished playing and singing, there was a rare silence in the live streaming room. Then only after a moment, countless barrage of comments and gifts came like a storm, instantly occupying the entire screen. This is Lu Chen, this is the Lu Chen that fans love, the talented Lu Chen. Long time no see. Lyrics, Shirley/composer, Chen Xiaoxia. Chapter 568. After the song Long Time No See was sung, the anchor room immediately boiled up. Lu Chen did not disappoint everyone. His works were always so excellent. In the current pop music world where covers, imitations, and saliva were everywhere, he was undoubtedly a real clean stream. The number of online viewers in the Whale TV anchor room had exceeded 2 million. The simplest way for fans to express their love here was to give gifts. The rich and powerful fans donated a mighty and domineering aircraft carrier, while the ordinary fans contributed the fish balls that they usually obtained from signing in and completing missions. The gifts were light, but the sentiment was heavy, and when added together, it was a terrifying number. These amazing gifts once again proved that on the Whale TV platform, Lu Chen's popularity was unparalleled. Thank you. Lu Chen bowed and thank you everyone for your support. And the response of the fans was, sing one more song. The screen was full of messages again. Lu Chen was very straightforward: okay, then I'll sing one more song. The second song was also a new song, but it was the Mandarin version of the theme song of A Chinese Ghost Story. At present, A Chinese Ghost Story was still in Xinjiang, and the cumulative box office had exceeded 80 million. It was very likely to reach the goal of 100 million before it was stopped. The movie was very popular in Xinjiang, and both the ordinary audience and the industry had a very good reputation. The soundtrack and song in the movie had also received countless praise. Among them, the theme song, A Chinese Ghost Story, was called the best work in Hong Kong in the past decade. Some people asserted that this year's Best Original Movie Song of the Xinjiang Film Awards was A Chinese Ghost Story. This song was very popular in Hong Kong at the moment, bringing great popularity and prestige to Lu Chen. And now he was singing the Mandarin version of A Chinese Ghost Story. The tune of the Mandarin version and the Cantonese version were exactly the same, but the lyrics were slightly changed. It was equally classic and outstanding. A Chinese Ghost Story would definitely be released in China. Although the schedule was not set, the publicity could not be lagged behind. This kind of publicity was not only effective enough, but also did not need to spend a single cent and could even make money. Some of the fans in the broadcasting room had already heard this song, so they directly shouted it out in the bullet screen. However, this was definitely the first time they had heard the Mandarin version, so they felt that it was exceptionally fresh. After The Boundless Road Flows With You was finished, the bullet screen was flooded with gifts again. The fans were not satisfied and continued to shout. Tonight, Lu Chen was very easy to talk to. He readily accepted the advice and continued to sing a few of his past works. One song after another, the fans were never satisfied. Lu Chen sang a total of 7 songs before he ended the live broadcast. During the 2-hour live broadcast, the highest number of viewers exceeded 3 million, and Lu Chen received more than 1 million in tips. One live broadcast earned 1 million yuan in tips. The income was amazing, but this was also the long-accumulated enthusiasm of the fans. If Lu Chen played live broadcasts every day, it would definitely not be so good. Tired? As soon as Lu Chen turned off his computer, Chen Feier walked in with a blue and white porcelain bowl. Eat it while it's hot. She cooked a bowl of eggs in syrup for Lu Chen. Just now, when Lu Chen was live broadcasting, Chen Fei did not appear. In addition to privacy reasons, the main reason was that she did not want to cause unnecessary harm to the single dogs. Lu Chen was surprised. Where did the eggs come from? He had not lived in this house for a long time. Although he hired someone to clean it regularly, the refrigerator must be empty. Chen Fei explained, I asked my assistant to buy groceries from the supermarket. I can't eat out every day, right? Lu Chen smiled and said, then I want to taste your cooking. The hot eggs and syrup were fragrant and sweet in his mouth, but most importantly, there was a taste of happiness in it. The next day, when Lu Chen woke up from his sleep and looked at his girlfriend in his arms, the feeling of happiness was even stronger, and it also made an idea in his heart stronger. Lu Chen bowed his head and kissed Chen Fei's red face. Chen Fei's closed eyes moved and then slowly opened. She turned her head in a daze and asked sleepily, what time is it? Lu Chen smiled and said, it's still early. You can sleep a little longer. Chen Fei couldn't sleep. She twisted in Lu Chen's arms and murmured, I'm not going to sleep. I'll make breakfast for you. Lu Chen said, don't worry. I have something to discuss with you. Chen Fei was completely awake. What's the matter? Lu Chen hugged her and said, when we come back this time, let's merge our two studios. If star artists wanted to establish a foothold in the entertainment circle, they would either sign a contract with an entertainment media agency or open their own independent studios. Lu Chen and Chen Fei both had their own studios. The operation of the two studios was very good. Although Lu Chen's studio had not been established for a long time, its profit last year was more than 100 million yuan. Its outstanding performance was enough to make anyone in the industry envious. Needless to say, Chen Fei's studio's position in the circle for more than 10 years was as stable as Mount Tai. In terms of strength and scale, it was even above Lu Chen's studio. As the saying goes, cooperation is mutually beneficial. If the two studios could be united, it would undoubtedly be a strong combination. But there was also a problem here, which was related to Lu Chen and Chen Fei. It should be known that many couples had their own careers. Lu Chen and Chen Fei were only boyfriend and girlfriend at present. If the two studios merged, if there was a love affair in the future, then the trouble would be really big. Therefore, after careful consideration, Lu Chen proposed such an idea to Chen Fei. Because he had confidence in love and confidence in the two of them. Chen Fei was silent. Lu Chen, who didn't get a response, couldn't help scratching his head and said, if you don't like it. Before he finished his words, he was blocked by Chen Fei, mouth to mouth. After a passionate and lingering kiss, Chen Fei stroked Lu Chen's chest and gasped, in fact, I've been waiting for you to say this for a long time. Let's merge our two studios. Lu Chen said with a smile, then let's upgrade it to a company. Let's go to discuss it with my sister today. If the two studios merged, the scale would be very considerable. The structure of the studio was obviously not enough. It was inevitable to upgrade to a company, and it was also for long-term development considerations. Chen Fei nodded and had no objection. Ring ring at this time, the phone on the bedside suddenly rang. Lu Chen quickly reached out and picked up the phone. Hello? Are you up? If you are up, then come to the studio quickly. The voice of his sister, Lu Shi, came from the phone. There are a lot of things waiting for you. Lu Chen quickly said, got it, I also have something to tell you. Chapter 569. In the capital, New Era Art Park, Lu Chen Studio. In the general manager's office, Lu Chen and Chen Fei met Lu Shi. After more than a year of honing, Lu Shi was now in charge of the most potential star studio in China. She was shrewd and powerful inside and outside, just like the image of an elite in the industry. When she saw Lu Chen again, she said snappily, young Master Lu, you're finally back. If I didn't tell you, would you have stayed in Xiangjiang and had so much fun that you forgot home and home? Earlier, Lu Shi urged Lu Chen many times to come back to the capital as soon as possible, because there were many important matters in the studio that needed Lu Chen to finalize by himself. As the general manager, she couldn't overstep her authority. Although Lu Chen gave Lu Shi full authority, when it came to the studio and Lu Chen's own major interests, his sister had never been ambiguous. According to her words, arbitrary power made people arrogant, and she didn't want to be unable to be brother and sister in the end. For his sister's complaint, Chen Fei just smiled and didn't help Lu Chen at all. Lu Chen could only admit his mistake obediently. I was wrong. In front of Lu Shi, he was always the younger brother who needed to be worried about by his family. But now her younger brother had grown up. In front of Chen Fei, she also had to save face for Lu Chen. It's good that you know. Then tell me, what do you want to tell me? Lu Chen and Chen Fei looked at each other and held hands as if they had a tacit understanding. Lu Shi was shocked. Are you going to get married? It was no wonder that her sister misunderstood. When the two of them looked like this, anyone would have the same idea. Chen Fei blushed. Lu Chen hurriedly explained, no, Fei and I have discussed it and decided to merge our two studios to form a new media company. To be honest, this surprised Lu Shi more than the two's decision to get married. Merge to form a new company? Yes, Chen Fei said, we've thought about the name. Let's call it Chen Fei Media. Sister, please be the general manager. My studio will be merged with Lu Chen's. Lu Shi fell silent. The merger of the two studios was undoubtedly a big deal, but it was also a good thing. A strong alliance would integrate the resources and funds of both parties, and it would not be a problem to create a powerful new company. The future would also be more promising. But, are you two trying to tire me to death? Lu Shi rubbed her temples with a headache and said, you made such a big decision without saying a word. I don't care if I can cope with it or not. I'm so busy here with Lu Chen. Lu Chen ran over to give his sister a massage and said, I know you can do it. Isn't there a manager from Fei's side coming together? If it doesn't work, we'll hire a few more people. You can take care of the big things. Lu Shi reached out and patted him, but her tone softened. I still want to fall in love. Lu Chen was speechless. Lu Shi was 27 years old this year. She had a boyfriend when she was in college, but they soon broke up. After graduation, she worked hard to pay off her family's debt. Later, she was pulled to the capital by Lu Chen to help. Lu Chen's studio has been in a state of continuous expansion since its establishment. Lucy manages the studio and also serves as Lu Chen's agent. She doesn't know how busy she is usually, so she has no time to find a boyfriend to fall in love. A woman's youth passed quickly. In a few years, she would become a leftover woman. Speaking of it, Lu Chen had delayed her in the past 2 years. If she was in charge of a new company, Lu Chen felt guilty. But it's meaningless to fall in love. Perhaps feeling her brother's mood, Lu Shi smiled and said, I like my current job very much. We women should have our own career. It doesn't matter whether we have a man or not. Besides, if it weren't for you, I'm afraid I would still be working 3 jobs and have endless debts. After a pause, she continued, so since you have decided, I will definitely support you. The more Lu Shi said like this, the more Lu Chen felt guilty. Sister, Lu Shi held his hand and said, we are a family. I just hope that you and Fei can be happy. It's best to get married early and have a grandson for me. Otherwise, Lu Shui will go to college and she will be bored. Chen Fei blushed again, and Lu Shi could only giggle. Okay, I won't joke with you. Lu Shi waved her hand and said, that's it. I'll talk about your matter. Although he went to Hong Kong some time ago, Lu Chen's real career focus was still in the country, in the capital. When he was busy with the shooting and publicity of A Chinese Ghost Story in Hong Kong, he basically couldn't take care of the studio in the capital, which naturally brought great work pressure to Lu Shi. For example, Lu Chen invested in 2 companies in Hangzhou. Tian's media company was fine. She was very capable, and she had connections in the circle. In addition to sending a financial supervisor to supervise the studio, there was basically no need for Lu Shi to worry about it. But the Happy Network that Lu Chen invested in was completely different. The original intention of the establishment of the Happy Network was actually to help Gao He and Wang Xiaoling, but he also regarded the Happy Network as an expansion of his own career. Not only did he provide ideas, but he also invested a lot of money. In this new startup company that focused on mobile games, Lu Chen spent 4.5 million yuan, accounting for 80% of the shares, but as the absolute controlling shareholder, he had no time and energy to run it. But Gao He and Wang Xiaoling were both college students who had just graduated. It was not a problem for them to work hard. If they really started a company, they would encounter more problems and troubles. In the end, these problems and troubles still fell on Lu Shi. Since the establishment of the Happy Network, Lu Shi has been to Hangzhou 5 or 6 times. Although she also sent people here, she couldn't completely ignore it. After all, this was also Lu Chen's career. In addition, as Lu Chen's popularity and fame grew higher and higher, more and more people came to his door to seek cooperation, investment, and even self-recommendation. Just dealing with these visitors was enough to make Lucy overwhelmed. That's right. In particular, some people and units had very powerful backgrounds and could not be easily offended, which was even more troublesome. Fortunately, Lu Chen had a good relationship with the Li family, and Lu Shi also knew Li Mushi. With this solid and thick shield, she also withstood a lot of storms from the outside world. Otherwise, it would be really difficult for her to survive alone. From this point of view, Lu Shi fully supported the merger of the two studios. When the strength and scale increased to a certain extent, they would have a greater right to speak in the circle, and ordinary people could be directly ignored. In general, during the absence of Lu Chen, Lu Shi really had a hard time. Chapter 570. Speaking of the people who have come to her door recently, Lucy really has a lot to say, because basically it's Lu Chen's fault. One of them made her sister particularly speechless. Around the Spring Festival, reporters from many media came to the studio one after another. They didn't come to interview Lu Chen, but to inquire about the news of Remembering the Present and the Past. Remembering the Present and the Past was the pseudonym used by Lu Chen to publish The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was first published on Waves and had a certain influence. But because it couldn't sign a contract with the website, it was only spread by readers in a small circle. But in November last year, Shanghai Publishing House officially published The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, with a total of 5 volumes and 1 million words. According to the publishing contract signed by both parties, the first printing of the hardcover edition was 100,000 copies, and the first printing of the paperback edition was 200,000 copies. The total number of the first printing reached 1.5 million copies. For the private Shanghai Publishing House, publishing The Smiling, Proud Wanderer with such a high standard was also a big risk for them. If the signing party was not Lu Chen's studio who owned the copyright, they would not have dared to be so bold. At that time, Lu Chen's studio also made a recommendation for this series of books. As a result, this novel with the theme of New Modern Wuxia caused a great response in the market. Through the tireless marketing and promotion of Shanghai Publishing House and the praise of readers, it had become a bestseller at the end of last year. Wuxia novels were not a new thing. As early as the Qing dynasty, there was a classical masterpiece, 3 Heroes and 5 Gallants, and its earlier origin could be traced back to the biography of ranger and assassin in the Han dynasty. In the modern Republic of China, people were liberated from the shackles of feudalism, and various schools of thought poured into China. The newspaper industry and the publishing industry were unprecedentedly prosperous. Wuxia novels also rose suddenly, and they were deeply loved by people with their unique chivalrous spirit. Wuxia cases and short fight storytelling were very popular at that time. In the 1970s and 1980s, a group of Wuxia novelists emerged in Hong Kong and Taiwan. They inherited and developed on the basis of the previous Wuxia novels, and gave birth to such famous contemporary Wuxia novels as Legend of the Mad Swordsman and Sword in the Sky, and so on. Therefore, there were also Wuxia movies and TV series. But in the 1990s, Wuxia novels and Wuxia movies declined, but they were not cut off. Nowadays, online novels were very popular, and many fantasy and fantasy stories also contained the shadow of Wuxia novels. The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was undoubtedly a very special work. Its story was far more exciting than the traditional wuxia novels. The plot was full of ups and downs, which was more suitable for modern people. It was not as bizarre as the online fantasy novels, which gave people a refreshing feeling. Some critics gave The Smiling, Proud Wanderer the Swordsman the title of the pioneer of the new school of wuxia, asserting that there would be more books of the same genre appearing in the market. As of today, the first edition of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer had been sold out, no matter if it was the hardcover edition or the paperback edition. Shanghai Publishing House had printed an additional 300,000 copies of the second edition, and the third edition was also planned. The Smiling, Proud Wanderer had stirred up a new wuxia trend in the book market. Shanghai Publishing House naturally made a lot of money, and its reputation was so good, so it naturally attracted a lot of media attention. After reading The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, many readers wanted to know the identity of the author and whether he was writing a new book. The related blogs and forums were in full swing. Therefore, many media got the news and wanted to dig out the story behind this best-selling wuxia novel. As a result, the reporters first ran into a wall in Shanghai Publishing House. In fact, Shanghai Publishing House was also very curious about the author. They once wanted to invite the author to do a book signing activity, but they were politely declined by Lu Chen's studio. Remember Now and Ancient signed all the copyrights and agency rights to Lu Chen's studio. He was very mysterious. He didn't even have a blog, and no information about him could be found on the internet. Therefore, the reporters had to go to Lu Chen's studio to find out the truth. Of course, She knew about it, but she couldn't sell Lu Chen's secret. She had to refuse them with the reason that the author himself didn't want to contact the media. Look at what you have done. Speaking of this, the elder sister was full of resentment. Obviously, she had been harassed by the media. Playing mysterious, Lu Chen smiled and said, "Isn't it good? Playing mysterious is actually a very good marketing method." No one was omniscient and omnipotent. Lu Chen not only made original music, but also wrote TV and movie scripts, and also acted in and even directed, which gave people the feeling that he was omnipotent. Fame was enough for him. He didn't need to add the title of wuxia novelist to show off. Therefore, Remember Now and Ancient was destined to be mysterious all the time. It would not be fun to uncover the mystery now. And The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was the beginning of Lu Chen's great wuxia IP. It won such a great success in the publishing market, which also made him full of confidence. I will finish writing and publish the second book within this year. The movie and TV version of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer can also be put on the agenda. Of course, it will be after the release of a Chinese ghost story and the completion of the shooting of You from the Star. Lu Chen calculated. Not considering other projects, his work schedule was basically full this year. From this point of view, it was time and necessary for his and Chen Fei, studios to merge. She also admired Lu Chen. Then continue to play if you like. At 8:00 that night, Lu Chen's studio and Chen Fei, Studio's official Vows on Waves blog released a photo at the same time. The content of the photo was very simple, just one hand holding the other hand, and the background was blurred. And the title of the new blog was 3 words, Together. The fans of the official vows of the two studios were far less than the personal blogs of Lu Chen and Chen Fei, but such a fanciful title and accompanying photo were released at the same time, and immediately caused a huge sensation in their fan circle. Big news, big event. The comments on Wave's blog were crazy. Wow! My Chen and my Fei are registered to be married? This is the pace of making the headlines. Congratulations to my Chen and my Fei. Although I want to express my congratulations, my heart is sour, and I feel like crying. Together, together. 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 Finally, they are really together. Congratulations. Most of the fans thought that the two were going to take the last step, and their love had been cultivated to fruition. There were also a small number of fans who were sour and sad, and their feelings were very complicated. However, they all guessed wrong. Chapter 571. The photos and blog titles released by Lu Chen's studio and Chen Fei's studio at the same time not only misled countless fans, but also many of their friends in the circle sent congratulatory messages to express their congratulations. This time, it was really big. When the two studios saw that things were developing in an uncontrollable direction, they quickly released the real news. After serious consideration by Lu Chen and Chen Fei themselves, in order to better expand their careers, the two studios will merge in the near future and form a new media company. They were actually together like this, and it wasn't what everyone thought it would be. Therefore, the fans, who were alarmed by the false alarm, immediately complained. So it's a studio merger. I thought my Chen and my Fei were going to get married. It's a waste of my feelings and hurt my heart. Compensation, you must compensate for the emotional damage. I was so scared. Huh, city people really know how to play. That's still worth congratulating. The studio merger is just the first step for the two of them to be together. Everyone, rest in peace. I knew it. There must be something fishy. In addition to the official V of the two studios, countless fans ran to the personal blogs of Lu Chen and Chen Fei to continue to complain, shouting for compensation for the emotional damage and for the treatment of being thrown dog food. Lu Chen admitted to the punishment and said that he would select 2,888 fans from the ID in the comment area and give them a Chinese ghost story, peripheral gifts and the original soundtrack album worth more than 1 million, as well as a cinema top-up card. He also showed the photos of these movie peripheral products on his blog. Since the release of A Chinese Ghost Story in Xiangjiang, in addition to the box office sales, it had also created an amazing record, that was, the sales record of the peripheral products of Hong Kong films. In the past, this market was basically occupied by Hollywood blockbusters, and Hong Kong films could not even get a share of the soup. However, A Chinese Ghost Story had sold more than 38 million peripheral products so far, shocking the industry. At that time, Lu Chen had also completed the design and production of the peripheral products of A Chinese Ghost Story in advance. He had commissioned a large factory on the side of the deep sea. Whether it was the doll figurines or daily souvenirs, the quality was absolutely high. In particular, the figurines of Ning Kaichen, Nia Xiaoqian, Yan Qixia, and Granny Treyant were divided into several versions. Among them, the imitation version and the cute version sold very well, and the stores around several big cinemas were all sold out. The photos posted by Lu Chen were all taken by professional photographers in the studio. They were beautiful and attractive. Although A Chinese Ghost Story had not yet been released in China, it was enough to arouse the interest of fans. This was great. The comment area of Lu Chen's blog was filled in the blink of an eye. Everyone said that as long as they could be selected, they would forgive Lu Chen's hurtful behavior. A small storm was eliminated. Although Lu Chen had paid a price of 1 million yuan, it was nothing compared to the publicity effect of this comeback. As the saying goes, good things come in pairs. On the second day after the two studios announced the merger to form a new company, good news came from Xiangjiang. A Chinese Ghost Story had passed the review of the Xiangjiang Film Association and obtained a precious mainland screening pass. At the same time, it could also enjoy a 1-year preferential support policy from the Xiangjiang government. This was actually expected. With the outstanding box office and reputation of A Chinese Ghost Story, if the Xiangjiang Film Association stopped this movie, it would definitely not be the former who would lose face. It was worth mentioning that The Painted Skin was also on the list. This was not surprising. Both Huaguan Pictures and Star Art Entertainment were powerful companies with strong connections in the industry. Although The Painted Skin had lost to A Chinese Ghost Story, compared to other Hong Kong films of the same period, its advantage was still quite obvious. Huaguan Pictures had spent so much money on The Painted Skin. The money lost in Xiangjiang must be recovered in the mainland. It was believed that there would be another fierce battle in the country between the adapted screenwriters of the same novel. However, as long as Huaguan Pictures was not stupid, they would definitely not fight head-on with A Chinese Ghost Story for the box office. Therefore, when Lu Chen received the news, he did not take his original opponents seriously. He asked the studio to send the original film to the SARFT for review, and on the other hand, he contacted the cinema chains through his partners. Although Hong Kong films that went through the Green Channel, Sino-Hong Kong co-production, had a guaranteed first week of screening, it was definitely a big mistake to rely on the policy of the higher-ups to lie down and sleep peacefully. The cinema chains in the country were divided into three. The three major cinema chains controlled more than 65% of the market share, especially in large and medium-sized cities. Their market share was even higher, and their words were naturally extremely powerful. In addition to building cinemas and expanding channels, the three major cinema chains also controlled or invested in film companies upstream. Therefore, in terms of screening, the three major cinema chains must first take care of the films produced by their own or related companies, then the imported Hollywood blockbusters, and finally the other films. Chapter 572. Lu Chen's studio moved once after its establishment. It moved from the original office building to the New Era Art Park and subleased part of the building of Yu Zhong's studio, which had an area of about 1,000 square meters. For a new company, an area of 1,000 square meters was definitely too large. Even if it could accommodate hundreds of employees, there would be no problem. At present, the total number of employees of the two studios added up was less than 100. However, Chen Fei Media was not an ordinary company. First of all, Lu Chen's studio had a recording studio, which had been invested several million yuan. A large part of the upper floor had already been separated. Together with the office area, leisure area, and department offices, there was not much spare space to use. The new company would develop music, film, and television in an all-round way. In addition to the existing recording studio, it would build an independent studio and separate several major departments. With the expansion of the company, the staff would also be further increased. In this way, the area of 1,000 square meters was really not enough. From the perspective of taking precautions, it was even more cramped. The reason was that Lu Chen's career was developing too fast. Of course, rice had to be eaten one bite at a time. Although the problem existed, it was not impossible to solve. The merger of the two studios first began, and it entered the fast lane in a short period of time. Brother Lu Chen. There were always surprises in life, such as this beautiful girl who appeared in front of him in Lu Chen's studio. Sister Jejentana. Lu Chen was very surprised. He did not expect that Jejentana would come with the staff of Chen Fei, studio today. Jejentana was Mongolian and had just turned 15 this year. Last year, when Chen Fei, was filming on the Mongolian prairie, Lu Chen went to visit him and met this little girl. They also formed a special relationship. At that time, Lu Chen wrote a song, Beautiful Prairie My Home, and taught it to Jejentana. As a result, it was filmed by Chen Fei, and posted on his blog, causing a great response. Chen Fei and Lu Chen's fans all liked this Mongolian girl very much. With the popularity of the song, My Home on the Beautiful Grassland, in China, she became an internet celebrity. After becoming famous, Jejentana attracted a lot of media to interview her. There were even some who wanted to sign a contract with her or become her manager. Whether they had good intentions or good intentions, they all brought her a lot of trouble. Under such circumstances, Chen Fei took the initiative to sign Jejentana. She did not want to make much money through Jejentana, but to make up for her unintentional actions. After that, Jejentana came to the capital and settled down under the care of Chen Fei. She went to school and started a completely different life. This was the first time Lu Chen and Jejentana had seen each other since they parted ways on the plains. After half a year, the little girl had grown up a lot. She was a slender and elegant young girl. Even her dressing had changed. There was a trace of unique grassland charm in her youthful beauty. Chen Fei regarded Jejentana as his sister. Although she had signed a contract, he did not let her enter the circle too early. He let her spend most of her time studying, so there was not much change in her temperament. Lu Shi was also there, so Lu Chen introduced her to his sister. Lu Shi also liked this beautiful Mongolian girl very much. She held her hand and asked all sorts of questions, as if they were sisters. When Jejentana was signed by Chen Feier's studio, Lu Shi, who got the news, called Lu Chen to complain, saying that he let go of a good seedling. Now that the two studios had merged, and Jejentana had come along, the result was undoubtedly satisfactory. Jejentana's mouth was very sweet. With a few words, she coaxed Lu Shi to smile. She took her hand and asked Lu Chen, "You signed Sister Jejentana. You can't keep her hidden, right? You should also release an album for her." Jejentana hid behind Lu Shi and smiled. It was obvious that she was looking forward to it. Lu Chen said with a smile, "Then I'll discuss it with Feier and find a suitable opportunity." Lu Shi was just about to speak when Chen Xian knocked on the door and walked in. "Manager, teacher Yu Jizhong is here and wants to see you." Yu Jizhong? Lu Chen and Lu Shi suddenly looked at each other, not knowing why this neighbor had taken the initiative to visit. When Lu Chen's studio rented most of the site from Yu Jizhong's studio, the artist was actually not very happy. Although it was close at hand, he had never visited them. Now that he was here, Lu Shi definitely had to come out to receive him. Lu Chen also wanted to see him. Lu Shi said to Jejentana, "Sister Jejentana, you play here first. I'll let Chen Xian accompany you. I have something to do with Lu Chen." Jejentana nodded obediently and secretly glanced at Lu Chen. When coming out of the office, Lu Shi lowered her voice and said to Lu Chen, "Be careful." Lu Chen was shocked. "What's wrong?" Lu Shi sneered. "Don't think that I can't tell. Is Jejentana interested in you? She's a teenage girl and doesn't know anything. You have to be careful and don't cause any trouble." Lu Chen smiled bitterly. "Sister, it was certain that Jejentana had a good impression of him, but this kind of good impression should be the hazy feelings of a young girl who just had her first awakening of love. Lu Chen only treated her as a sister, just like Mu Xiaochu. His heart had already been filled by one person." Lu Shi interrupted, "Well, you don't have to explain to me. Anyway, you know what you're doing." Lu Chen nodded helplessly. In the customer reception room, he and Lu Shi met Yu Jizhong. Chapter 573. The New Era Art Center was established in 2001, located between Haidian Park and Beijing University, covering an area of nearly 700 mu. It is one of the key construction projects of Beijing's art and culture. As a well-known and internationally renowned artist, Yu Jizhong was one of the first people to move his studio to the New Era Park, so at that time, he occupied a whole building with an area of 1,800 square meters. At the beginning of last year, Lu Chen, through his relationship with Lin Jijia, the music director of Flying Stone Records, rented 1,000 square meters of area from the artist as the new site of the studio, and invested a huge amount of money to build a first-class recording studio in China. Now, Yu Jizhong sublet the remaining 800 square meters of area to Lu Chen, which just solved the problem faced by Lu Chen's new company expansion. Although it was not a timely help, it was better than icing on the cake. Moreover, the price he offered was very fair. He didn't think of taking the opportunity to extort Lu Chen, and even promised to help Lu Chen sign a new long-term contract with the management committee of the art center. All the buildings in the art park belong to the state and are not allowed to be sold or transferred. Only by signing a long-term contract can the interests of the operator be guaranteed. Therefore, it is not easy to re-sign the contract if there is no relationship like Lu Chen's studio, which accepts the sublease midway. Out of gratitude to Yu Jizhong, Lu Chen and Lu Shi invited the artist to have lunch together at noon. Yu Jizhong readily agreed. During the meal, Yu Jizhong drank a few glasses of wine and was slightly drunk. Suddenly, he said to Lu Chen, "Xiao Lu, don't you think it's a coincidence that you are going to set up a new company here, and I come to give you the site?" Lu Chen and Lu Shi couldn't help looking at each other. Lu Shi tentatively replied, "Yes, teacher Yu, we also feel very strange. It's really a coincidence, and thank you very much." Yu Jizhong pointed to the plate with his chopsticks and said with a smile, "That's because someone spoke for you. He also helped me get a house in the art village. Otherwise, I might not have moved away in the next year or two." "Someone spoke?" Lu Chen asked in surprise. Teacher Yu, can you tell me who this helper is? Yu Jizhong smiled and shook his head. He didn't let me say, anyway, you just know, and, after a pause, he continued, in addition, I also appreciate you very much. There are too few young people like you in the entertainment industry. You are talented but not arrogant. You use it to pursue your career and life progress, and you have a heart for charity. Lu Chen was ashamed and modest. Teacher Yu, you praise me too much. Yu Jizhong shook his head and said, it's not a compliment. I know a little about the entertainment industry. There are 2 students in the entertainment industry, but they are not as good as you. The charity fund that you set up to treat leukemia patients is very good. I've heard people talk about it several times. The Chen Fei Charity Foundation, jointly established by Lu Chen and Chen Fei, has been in operation for nearly a year. So far, it has helped more than 300 leukemia patients from poor families, most of whom were children. Some of the patients have basically recovered after bone marrow transplantation, which has won a good reputation for the foundation. Most importantly, unlike most private charity funds, although Chen Fei Charity Foundation has a license to solicit donations from the general public, it never persuades donations under any pretext. In addition to the donations from Lu Chen, Chen Fei, and their friends in the circle, at most, they raise money for specific objects through the online crowdfunding, and achieve the purpose of earmarking funds and transparency of accounts. In addition, the daily operating expenses of the foundation are all from the fund account set up by the 2, so that donations from others can be 100% implemented, which is much better than those public-private charity funds with messy accounts. All of these made the fans of Lu Chen and Chen Fei full of pride when talking about it. As a well-known public figure, social reputation is very important. Yu Jizhong, of course, gave up his studio completely because someone spoke, but also because of his good impression and appreciation for Lu Chen. This meal was enjoyed by both the guests and the host. After returning, Yu Jizhong signed a sublease contract with Lu Shi and promised to move out within 3 days. At this point, this unique building with a large area of glass and steel frame, with an indoor area of 1,800 square meters, was no longer divided into 2, and became the headquarters of the soon-to-be-established Chen Fei Media Company, Limited. I'm going to build an indoor studio here. After getting the architectural drawings copied from the management committee, Lu Chen gathered all the important members, including Chen Fei Air Studio, and held a preparatory meeting for the new company. The focus of the meeting was his vision for the future of the new company. Lu Chen pointed to the drawings displayed on the projection screen and said in high spirits, build it according to international first-class standards, and set up a special effects production team. International first-class plus special effects production team. Many people present were shocked by Lu Chen's proposal. Although the area of the indoor studio designated by Lu Chen was only about 400 square meters, but according to the international first-class standards, the investment cost was definitely in the tens of millions. High-end equipment basically had to be imported, the price was very expensive, and it was normal to spend hundreds of millions. The special effects production team was even more expensive. Most film and television production companies outsource special effects to specialized companies instead of raising their own team. But Lu Chen had his own ideas. He had this idea as early as when he was filming A Chinese Ghost Story. At that time, the special effects company found for A Chinese Ghost Story was not the top in Hong Kong. It was not that they were reluctant to spend money, but that the top companies were already full of business. Fortunately, there were not many special effects in this movie. Even so, it still involved a lot of energy for Lu Chen, and he spent a lot of money, but the final effect was not particularly satisfactory. This feeling of being controlled made Lu Chen very uncomfortable. Unlike other film and television companies, Lu Chen had a powerful and unparalleled trump card, which was the treasure house of memories from the dream world, which was a source of endless wealth. With this trump card in hand, he was not afraid that the TV movies he invested in would lose money. He could completely afford the huge expenses of building his own studio and special effects production team. Lu Chen's ambition was not only to let this team serve him, but also to promote the overall standard of domestic special effects production, so that the audience would not criticize the domestic blockbusters as 50 cents. His ambition was a little big, but in the future, when his peers saw the films and TV series produced by Chen Fei Media, with excellent production, how could they be indifferent? Although the new company had not been officially established, Lu Chen had already set his eyes on the future. Chapter 574. Lu Chen's confidence and ambition first brought a lot of impact to the senior management of Chen Fei Studio. Several managers and supervisors disapproved of this. They had no objection to the merger of the two studios to form a new company, but in the process of the merger, Chen Fei Studio, which was more powerful, would be merged into Lu Chen Studio, so they had some ideas in their hearts. It's just that they have ideas. Since Chen Fei has made a decision, everyone can only obey. But this did not mean that they were convinced by the young Lu Chen. Now Lu Chen had thrown out such a big company construction plan, which was an amazing investment of tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of international first-class special effects production team. A supervisor couldn't help but say, "Mr. Lu, the company has just been set up and operated. Should we be cautious, stabilize the foundation first, and then slowly do it step by step?" In the supervisor's view, Lu Chen was a little too arrogant and confident. Young entrepreneurs usually make such mistakes. Although Lu Chen's past achievements are dazzling, whether in the entertainment industry or in the business circle, there are many examples of smooth sailing and complacency, leading to decision-making mistakes later. Learn from the mistakes of the past. You can't become fat in one go. You just learn to walk and you want to run. How could it be so easy? Indoor studios were not so bad. There were big ways to do it, small ways to do it, and the cost and investment were controllable. However, the talents and high-end equipment needed by a special effects production team were simply bottomless pits. If they aimed for the international first-class level, it would be a cosmic black hole that devoured funds. Why was the investment of Hollywood blockbusters so amazing? In addition to the remuneration of star actors, the main thing was the cost of special effects production. The special effects production cost of some blockbusters even accounted for more than 70% of the total budget. It was too difficult to catch up in China. Although many domestic blockbusters claimed to have special effects produced by Hollywood teams, and a lot of money was indeed invested, compared with real Hollywood blockbusters, there was a big gap. Some films lost money because they spent too much money on special effects and couldn't achieve the effect that the audience was satisfied with. This was the result of outsourcing special effects production. In contrast, youth and idol films that did not need special effects made a lot of money in the market. Therefore, he disapproved of Lu Chen's idea. However, Lu Chen was very determined. Although an excellent special effects team was hard to come by, as long as he was willing to spend money and sincerity to recruit talents, and was willing to invest in equipment and technology, as long as he persevered, the initial expenditure would be great, but the returns would be tempting. At this time, Chen Fei said, "I support Lu Chen's decision." She expressed her firm support for Lu Chen, so the others naturally had nothing to say. When Lu Chen saw that the managers and directors were not convinced, he smiled and said, "I'm here to announce a piece of good news. The box office of A Chinese Ghost Story, produced by our studio, has exceeded 90 million yuan in Shangjiang. It won't be a problem to exceed 100 million yuan before it's released." A Chinese Ghost Story was officially released in Hong Kong on the 21st of last month to today, March 8th. In less than 3 weeks, the total box office had reached 91.08 million. There were still more than 10 days before it's released, so breaking 100 million yuan was 100% achievable. The people attending the meeting were the management personnel of the two studios. Most of them had been in the industry before. They knew very well what it meant for Hong Kong's box office to exceed 100 million yuan. That was the level of a Hollywood blockbuster. Lu Chen was undoubtedly using this news to show or prove his strength. And that was not all. In addition, the sales of the peripheral products of A Chinese Ghost Story have also exceeded 40 million yuan, and I can tell you that the total cost of A Chinese Ghost Story, from production to publicity, did not exceed 37 million yuan. There was nothing more intuitive than data. If Lu Chen only said that A Chinese Ghost Story had made a lot of money at the box office, no one would feel much. There were many films that made money. It was completely different to compare it with detailed and accurate data. The producers of Hong Kong's box office share was more than that of the mainland, usually between 50% to 60%. Even if A Chinese Ghost Story had a 50% share, the total box office of 100 million yuan would be 50 million yuan. The profit of the peripheral products was even higher. Even if it was calculated at 50%, 40 million yuan would be 20 million yuan. The two added up to 70 million yuan. The cost was 37 million yuan, and the profit was 33 million yuan. It did not sound like a lot. These days, a movie that sold well at the box office would be embarrassed to go out and greet people if it did not earn hundreds of millions. However, this was only the profit realized by A Chinese Ghost Story in Hong Kong. This movie was about to be released in the mainland, and every share of the box office would be a net profit. Even if the share in the domestic market was relatively low, it would still be a shocking number, unless it failed. Would A Chinese Ghost Story fail in the mainland? This possibility was really very small. If the quality of the film was not good, how could it conquer the picky Hong Kong audience? In addition, with the platform of Hong Kong, A Chinese Ghost Story could easily be exported to Treasure Island, Australia, and many countries in Southeast Asia. It was even possible to land in Japan and South Korea. Lu Chen and Chen Fei were very famous in South Korea. Because of all these, everyone suddenly realized that spending hundreds of millions to build a world-class studio and special effects production team was not a big problem for the new company that was about to be established. Of course, they could be willful with money. As for the benefits of having a high-end studio and special effects team, there was no need to say more. The managers and supervisors of Chen Fei, studio were not fools. They understood after thinking for a while. Their attitude toward Lu Chen suddenly changed greatly. There was less contempt and disapproval, and more admiration and respect. This industry had always been based on strength. Profit was the best way to prove one's strength. Lu Chen had enough strength to realize his ambition. After convincing everyone, Lu Chen took advantage of the victory. Let's put the company's planning and construction aside for now. The first important thing after the establishment of the new company is the promotion of A Chinese Ghost Story. My expectations for the domestic box office of A Chinese Ghost Story, no less than 500 million. If it was any other young man who wanted to make a domestic box office of 500 million for his first movie, everyone would definitely scoff at him and laugh at his arrogance. But facing Lu Chen, no one had any doubts now. They even felt that this expected goal was not high at all. If it was calculated according to the 500 million domestic box office, then the profit that A Chinese Ghost Story would bring to Chen Fei Media would be 200 million, not including the sales of peripheral products. Chapter 575. On March 13, Chen Fei Media completed its registration in Beijing, and the two studios officially merged into a new company. The registered capital of Beijing Chen Fei Media Company, Limited is 10 million yuan. The legal representative is Lu Chen. Chen Fei is the chairman, and Lu Shi is the general manager. The three hold 45%, 45%, and 10% of the shares respectively. The company is headquartered in Building C17 of the New Era Art Center in Beijing. At the same time, the official V of the two studios in Waves blog was cancelled, and the official V of Chen Fei Media was launched at the same time. On the same day, the number of followers exceeded the 1 million mark. The establishment of Chen Fei Media caused a lot of repercussions in the circle, and even made many big shots in the industry vigilant. Chen Fei studio was established very early, and Lu Chen's studio was relatively new. The two studios had one thing in common, that was, they basically only served themselves and never signed other artists. The only exception was Jejentana, but Chen Fei signed this Mongolian girl for another reason, which was completely different from ordinary artists. Now that Chen Fei Media was established, the two studios joined forces and upgraded to a real company, and the scope of business covered pop music, TV series, and movies. The business strategy was bound to change dramatically. Looking at Lu Chen's development trajectory in the past 2 years, people couldn't help but feel shocked. Lu Chen first changed domestic pop music, stirring up the music industry with amazing talent and exuberant creative ability, making 2016 his pop year. While sweeping the pop music world, Lu Chen crossed over into the film and television industry. A self-written and self-acted Autumn in My Heart and a Full House of Romance both created a ratings miracle and won the ratings champion in South Korea. The results were as dazzling as the sun, and no one could ignore them. However, after great success in the TV series, Lu Chen was still not satisfied. He went to Hong Kong to set up a new studio and filmed his first movie, A Chinese Ghost Story. This movie, based on Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, only invested 30 million yuan, but it beat the blockbuster, Painted Skin, which invested more than 100 million yuan in the box office war. At present, the cumulative box office has exceeded 100 million yuan, and even the peripherals have been sold for tens of millions. What made people speechless was that Lu Chen took care of the director, male lead, screenwriter, and soundtrack of A Chinese Ghost Story. The movie would soon be released in China. With all these, he teamed up with Chen Fei-er. How could it not make people in the industry feel like wolves are coming? Of course, many people wanted to cooperate with Chen Fei Media, especially those who had worked with the two studios in the past. They sent their congratulations and blessings on their blogs. Especially those who had worked with the two studios before. Chen Fei Media, Fei, and Media. The 100 Minutes of Chinese Fei Chen Fei Media. And Media. The domestic film censorship system was unique in the world, and the scope of control was also very large. Many domestic films were shot down during the script review stage, and even slightly sensitive content was not allowed. That was not the worst part. If the script was rejected, they would just have to go back and rewrite it, which would only waste some printing fees and brain cells. At most, it would take a little more time. The worst part was that after the movie was painstakingly shot and submitted for review, they would only receive the word failed in the end. Chen is Chen Wei Fei. You are Chen. Fei Chen, it is like you is standing. Chen, in the end, you can only wait for a cold answer and some vague comments. If you don't know the people behind the door, you can't even get a real opinion on the changes. This was the despair of a filmmaker who posted on his personal blog after his film was rejected. Also, it was not easy to pass the review. In the end, a large part of the plot and scenes in the film were cut. As a result, the audience was often confused when watching the film. They were clearly fighting in the room, but they suddenly came out and sat in the car. Those who did not know the truth often scolded the director for making no sense and editing. However, the director was really wronged. Because the bloody and violent scenes were cut, it was not only domestic films. Even imported Hollywood blockbusters could not escape this big scissors. As a result, many audiences went home to search for the original version on the internet after watching the film in the cinema. The waters here were too deep. If one were to really talk about it, it wouldn't be a problem to compile a thick ancient book. Later, there were too many opinions. Even the Americans tried to pressure them through various channels. Since 2010, the film censorship system of the State Administration of Radio, Film and Television had been reformed. In general, the speed of the review had been accelerated and the intensity of editing had been reduced. Even so, A Chinese Ghost Story still had 2 so-called erotic scenes cut. In fact, this was already within Lu Chen's expectations. It would be strange if the censors of the State Administration of Radio, Film and Television did not cut it. These 9 minutes of content had basically no impact on the plot. It was already very satisfactory to get such a result. The large-scale publicity of A Chinese Ghost Story could finally be fully carried out in the country. Lu Chen had set a budget of up to 30 million yuan for the domestic publicity of this movie. Although it was a glorious achievement to have a box office of more than 100 million yuan in Shanjiang, a film with a box office of more than 100 million yuan in the country was nothing at all. Especially after 2010, the box office records were constantly being broken. 300 million, 500 million, 1 billion, 5 billion, 2 billion, breaking the record was as easy as cutting melons and vegetables. Although many films that broke the record had the phenomenon of the box office being flooded, there was no doubt that the popularity of the domestic film market was undeniable. The box office champion of the past was nothing today. The explosion of the market brought about amazing benefits, and amazing benefits brought about fierce competition. At this time, the role of publicity and marketing was big. It was indispensable. If a new film did not promote or hype and relied solely on word of mouth to win the audience, there were examples, but it was definitely a rare existence. There was a lot of chance and luck involved. Cinema chains wouldn't even give a lot of screenings for obscure movies. Precious resources shouldn't be wasted on nameless people. This was the reality, the rule of the industry. The publicity budget that Lu Chen had set for A Chinese Ghost Story was actually not considered high. This was because before A Chinese Ghost Story, the domestic publicity for The Painted Skin had already been carried out vigorously. Huaguan Pictures was obviously unwilling to fail in Xiangjiang and had bet on the domestic market. And the opponent that A Chinese Ghost Story faced was not only The Painted Skin. Chapter 576. On March 20th, Battle of Vulcan will be released, and on April 9th, Legend of the Holy Land will be released. In the conference room of Chunfei Media, a closed-door meeting of the company's executives was being held. Wan Xiaoquan spoke into the microphone with a serious expression. These two Hollywood special effects blockbusters are our biggest opponents. Unless we delay A Chinese Ghost Story to be released in May, we can't avoid them. Wan Xiaoquan returned to the capital from Hong Kong 3 days ago. The day before he returned, A Chinese Ghost Story, which had exhausted its box office potential, ended perfectly in the major cinemas in Hong Kong. The cumulative box office earnings were 105 million yuan, ranking in the top 20 in Hong Kong's history. If Hollywood blockbusters were excluded, A Chinese Ghost Story was ranked 7th among the Hong Kong and Sino-Hong Kong co-productions, and this did not include the 42 million plus peripheral sales. As the actual director of the movie, Wan Xiaoquan's contribution could not be ignored. In addition to the generous rewards, he also received half a month of long-term leave. However, Wan Xiaoquan did not choose to go on a vacation. Instead, he immediately returned to China to help Lu Chen with the publicity for A Chinese Ghost Story in China. He had quite a lot of experience in this regard. Others might not understand, but Wan Xiaoquan's name was not on A Chinese Ghost Story. Not only was he not disappointed or resentful, but he also racked his brains to come up with ideas for Chunfei Media. It was a little unbelievable. However, Wan Xiaoquan's gratitude to Lu Chen had always been buried in his heart. He was not very good at expressing his feelings, so he used his actions to repay Lu Chen's kindness. Lu Chen had helped Wan Xiaoquan when he was at his lowest and gave him precious trust. He allowed him to make a comeback in Hong Kong and gave him a work that was destined to become a classic. It really did not matter if it had a name or not. What mattered was that if his name was in the subtitles of the movie, it would not pass the review of the SARFT. Moreover, Wan Xiaoquan sincerely admired Lu Chen. The script of A Chinese Ghost Story was written by Lu Chen, and many of the scenes were drawn by Lu Chen. Coupled with the excellent soundtrack, it would not be a problem for another director. With all these reasons, Wan Xiaoquan needed to prove his ability even more. How could he have the leisure to go on a vacation? Recently, A Chinese Ghost Story had been released in China, but the situation was not optimistic. Showdown on Vulcan was a sci-fi blockbuster that Superstar Pictures had invested $170 million in. It had already earned $270 million in the box office in America, and it was aggressively moving to China. The publicity was even more fanfare. The CEO of Superstar Pictures, Douglas, was extremely confident that he would be able to obtain over 1 billion yuan in the domestic box office. In comparison, Lion Pictures' fantasy blockbuster, Legend of the Holy Land, had a weaker reputation, but the investment for this movie was not much worse than Battle of Vulcan. It had reached $150 million and was about to be released in the United States. If A Chinese Ghost Story were to be released at this time, it would have to face the attacks of two Hollywood blockbusters. It would undoubtedly be quite difficult to achieve Lu Chen's goal of $500 million box office. However, it would be even worse if it was delayed until May. At present, there were already pirated versions of A Chinese Ghost Story on the internet. However, they were all CAM and TS versions, which were the so-called gun versions and quasi-gun versions. The quality was very poor and was not enough to threaten the box office. Now, the country still attached great importance to the copyright protection of domestically produced films, including Hong Kong films. If a high-definition version was released during the screening period, it would definitely be severely attacked. After it was taken off the schedule, the impact would be much smaller. As the impact of the CAM and TS versions was very small, the producers turned a blind eye to it. It was fine if A Chinese Ghost Story was released recently, but if it was delayed for too long, it would be very difficult to control the high-definition version. At that time, the impact on the box office would be even greater. A Chinese Ghost Story will not be delayed, Lu Chen said decisively. Even if it's May, there will still be Hollywood blockbusters competing. We can't avoid it. We might as well fight with them. It doesn't matter even if we lose. What's more, we might not lose. The cost of A Chinese Ghost Story had long been recovered, and the extra profits were more than enough to be used for domestic publicity. No matter how much they earned in the box office, it was still a profit. If they were still afraid of competition, then they might as well not make a movie. Many domestic filmmakers had a phobia of beauty. The box office failure of a film was often blamed on the Hollywood blockbusters competing at the same time. They lamented that they were inferior in terms of technical strength and complained about the country's openness to the film market. As a result, the protection month for domestic films, in July and August, became a hot commodity. All the film companies were sharpening their heads to drill into it, fighting for a slot. In recent years, domestic films had relied on youth films, idol films, and big IP films to recover some of their decline. The situation had finally improved a lot. A Chinese Ghost Story was not related to these three genres, but Lu Chen was not afraid of Hollywood blockbusters. This was because he had never thought of making a profit in the domestic film market. His goal was long-term. Building a high-standard indoor studio and setting up a special effects production team were all around this goal. Lu Chen's confidence and courage to face the challenge infected everyone present. Wan Shaoquan smiled and said, "Then we have to increase our publicity efforts and formulate a targeted publicity strategy. Boss, you and the lady boss should show off your love on the blog more. The effect will definitely be good and it will save money." Everyone could not help but laugh. They did not expect Wan Shaoquan, who had always been serious, to also joke. Lu Chen smiled bitterly. "I will try my best." Although Wan Shaoquan was joking, what he said was very reasonable. As far as the movie A Chinese Ghost Story was concerned, the tens of millions of fans of Lu Chen and Chen Fei were undoubtedly the biggest ticket bank. The two of them increased their interaction on the blog and revealed some small information. It was all side publicity for A Chinese Ghost Story. The meeting ended after 2 hours. It was worth mentioning that The Painted Skin, which had already been released, was not included in the discussion. Because no one regarded The Painted Skin, a loser, as an opponent, there was naturally no value in discussing it. The head of Huaguan Pictures, Cui Xingxian, would probably vomit 3 mouthfuls of blood if he knew about it. After the meeting, Lu Chen had just returned to his office when Lu Shi's assistant, Chen Xian, came over. His sister had something important to talk to him about. Lu Chen felt a little strange, so he immediately rushed to Lu Shi's general manager's office. "What's wrong?" Lu Shi did not answer directly. Instead, she turned the computer screen on the table 180 degrees for him to see. The web page opened on the screen was the entertainment section of a large domestic website. The bold and black title on it was very eye-catching, causing Lu Chen's eyelids to twitch. "The Golden Yuan Awards nominations are leaked." The popular drama, Full of Romance, is not on the list. Chapter 577. The Golden One Awards was one of the two major domestic TV awards. In terms of scale and influence, in the past decade, the Golden One Awards had surpassed the older Yulon Awards to become the #1 domestic TV awards. Unlike the Yulon Awards, which was heavily influenced by the government, the Golden One Awards were the only national TV awards that were approved by the relevant government departments and voted on by the audience. To a large extent, they represented the direction and trends of the TV industry in the past year. As last year's #1 urban TV series, it was inconceivable that Full House of Romance would not be nominated for the Golden One Awards. This made Lu Chen, who didn't pay much attention to the Golden One Awards, angry and confused. He carefully read through the entertainment news. The content of the news was very long. First, it mentioned that the biennial Golden One Awards would be announced at the end of the month, but the name of last year's popular TV series, Full House of Romance, was not on the list. Based on this insider information, the reporters analyzed and guessed that the reason why Full House of Romance had not been nominated for the Golden One Awards was the same as why Autumn in My Heart had only received 2 nominations for the Yulon Awards last year. The basic purpose of the two major TV awards was that domestic TV series should follow the direction of positive energy. They needed to promote social justice, promote the values of the new era, and increase national confidence and cohesion. They should not judge the quality and value of a work based on the ratings. It wasn't just Autumn and Full House of Romance. Other urban TV series, idol dramas, comedies, and so on, which had good ratings, did not have much success in the two awards. In the end, the reporter expressed his regret that Full House of Romance did not get nominated for the Golden One Awards. He hoped that the final results would change so that romantic idol dramas could also get on the stage. The article had only been published for a little over an hour, but there were already over 5,000 comments. What's the Golden One Awards? Never heard of it. This comment received over 1,000 likes and was at the top of the list. I've been represented again. 789 likes and was at the second place. It's understandable that the Yulon Awards didn't talk about the ratings. After all, it's a government award. If the Golden One Awards followed suit, then what's the point of having the audience vote? Why not just decide on the award? The person above makes it sound like the Golden One Awards isn't decided. It doesn't matter if it wins or not. It's enough as long as the ratings are high. What's the point? There are so many jealous people. I think this is the right way. Holy sh*t, last time it was the Yulon Awards, and this time it's the Golden One Awards. Lu Chen is really being suppressed. It's hard to say if it's suppression, but it's true that it's boring. I don't care, I don't pay attention. Among these comments, most of them were dissatisfied with the Golden One Awards. There were also some who felt that it was unfair for Full of Romance. There were also a few who were probably Lu Chen's fans who were so indignant that they directly scolded the awards. Lu Chen didn't finish reading the long comments section. After a few minutes, he closed the web page. He asked Lu Shi, "What do you think?" Lu Shi shook her head and said, "I haven't heard anything yet, so I can't confirm the authenticity of the news. Actually, even if it's true, it doesn't matter. We don't need this award." When Lu Shi first saw this news, she also felt very angry. It was a clear rule that urban idol dramas didn't have any competition in the two awards. It was normal for them to not be liked by the judges, but it didn't even get a nomination. That was really too much. Full of Romance's ratings in 2016 could be said to be superior to its peers, and it even won first place in the ratings in Korea. The Golden One Awards committee ignored the results of this drama. Weren't they afraid of being scolded? But then again, among the domestic pop music, television drama, and movie awards, the Yulon Awards and the Golden One Awards had the least influence. In the past, the two awards had a lot of dirty secrets, such as predetermined awards, voting fraud, and so on. There had always been a lot of controversy in the industry. It might not be a bad thing for Full of Romance not to get involved in this mess. In addition, whether this news was true or not still needed to be verified, so there was no need to get angry over it. His sister was afraid that Lu Chen would be depressed and angry, so she comforted him a few more words. Lu Chen smiled and said, "If there's nothing, then there's nothing. We have enough things to do, there's no need to, *ring ring ring*. Before he finished speaking, the phone on his desk rang. She gestured to Lu Chen and then picked up the phone. "Hello, Chenfei Media." "Well, yes, what's the matter?" I haven't heard of this matter yet. I don't know the situation, so I can't comment. I'm really sorry, it's not convenient for us to accept interviews for the time being. Thank you, goodbye." After talking for a while, She put down the phone and said, "It's a reporter from Entertainment Express. It's about the Golden One Awards. He wanted to interview you, but I refused." Lu Chen nodded. At first, he was also very angry, but after reading the online report, his mood calmed down. Whether or not Full of Romance could get a nomination for the Golden One Awards in the end, it would not affect the status of this TV series in the industry. Not to mention anything else, Xiangjiang Satellite TV and ATV had offered a very high price for this TV series. They would not care about the Golden One Awards or the Yulan Awards. In the end, it was the results that spoke. Whether it was being suppressed or being ignored, maintaining a normal mind could go further in the film and television industry. It was also right not to accept interviews from reporters. Those reporters who wanted to see the world in chaos hoped that the two sides would fight because of this and make up news like, "Lu Chen bombards the Golden One Awards," to attract attention. It was too stupid to expect them to report fairly and impartially. Entertainment reporters were best at taking things out of context and even fabricating news, and they were very willing to go to court. It was so disgusting that it could disgust you to death. *ring ring*. The phone on the desk rang again. Not only that, but two of Lu Shi's mobile phones rang at the same time. For a time, the general manager's office was constantly ringing, and it became extremely noisy. There was no doubt that those entertainment reporters must have called after getting the news. Lu Shi was probably annoyed. Seeing this, Lu Chen smiled and said, "Go on with your work. I'm going back to work. I haven't finished the script." After saying that, he hurriedly slipped away, leaving his sister in the office overwhelmed and battered. Returning to his office, Lu Chen asked his assistant to bring him a cup of coffee. Although the script of You from the Star had been completed, there were still many contents that needed to be revised and corrected. He quickly put the matter of the Golden One Awards behind him. However, things were not that simple. Chapter 578. You from the Star is the third urban drama that Lu Chen is preparing to shoot this year, and it is also the last of his romantic trilogy. After shooting, he will fully turn to his own martial arts IP drama. The male and female protagonists of this TV series are still played by him and Chenfei, which is a perfect stage achievement. It is precisely because of this that Lu Chen attaches more importance to this TV series than Autumn in My Heart and Full House of Romance. The budget is double that of Full House of Romance, mainly because of the increased investment in special effects. You from the Star has a certain science fiction color. The male protagonist is an alien with superpower and a long life. This special romantic drama is definitely very fresh in terms of genre. Lu Chen dug out You from the Star from the memory of the dream world, and also wanted to create a ratings miracle again. But even with the memory wealth of a world, Lu Chen will never lie down and make money. When he was in Hong Kong, he began to write the script of You from the Star, and made a lot of modifications on the basis of the original work, especially some bug settings and plots that made the audience criticize. Big plentiful story and characters. The same approach he has been successful with Full House of Romance, and You from the Star is certainly no exception, and will do better. Lu Chen is preparing to shoot 30 episodes of this TV series, adding a new storyline, and increasing the number of characters in the play, which is loyal to the original work and more than the original work. It's just that in this way, Lu Chen's workload of writing the script has increased big, and he likes to master the whole story by himself, so he never hires a team to write for him like other big-name screenwriters. At this point, Lu Chen has no idea about money and fame. What he really pursues is a breakthrough in his career, so that he can maintain a steady stream of forward momentum. Therefore, the script of You from the Star has been written for 2 months, and has not been finalized yet. There are still many details that need to be perfected. However, there is an endless stream of people seeking cooperation, and they are about to break the threshold. Among them, the most active are Zhejiang Satellite TV and Beijing Television. The 2 satellite TV stations have tasted the sweetness of Full of Romance, and they have made a lot of money from advertising income. They are determined to win You from the Star. Of the nearly 30 satellite TV stations in the country, more than a dozen had contacted the original Lu Chen studio. The rest were not uninterested, but they knew that their strength was limited, so they did not participate in the competition. Apart from Zhejiang Satellite TV and Beijing Television, the most active and richest one is undoubtedly Shanghai Satellite TV. The price offered by Shanghai Satellite TV was higher than that of Zhejiang Satellite TV and Beijing Television, so far, Lu Chen has not officially finalized the partner of You from the Star. However, this did not affect the writing of the script. Thud. Thud. A soft knock on the door woke Lu Chen up from his creative state. At this time, he realized that the sky outside the floor-to-ceiling window was getting dark. He didn't know when the lights in the room had been turned on. "You're still writing?" It was Lu Shi who knocked on the door. She exclaimed in surprise, "You've been sitting in front of the computer for 4 to 5 hours. So long?" Lu Chen saved the document, stood up and moved his muscles and bones. Sure enough, he found that his hands and feet were a little sore after sitting for too long. Lu Shi smiled and said, "You must be hungry, right? Let's go to dinner. Someone will pay the bill tonight." "Ah." Lu Chen was curious, "Who is it?" Lu Shi blinked, "Guess?" Lu Chen rubbed his nose and said with a wry smile, "How can I guess? Is Fei back?" After the establishment of Chen Fei Media, as the lady boss, Chen Fei was busier than Lu Chen. A few days ago, she went to Huhai to shoot a commercial, and it was almost time for her to come back. As for the others, Lu Chen really couldn't think of them. It's not that he's bragging, but in the circle of Beijing, there are not thousands of people who want to invite him to dinner. It's not a problem to casually pick a few hundred, and they will not be unknown people. You only think of your wife. Lu Shi rolled her eyes and took the initiative to reveal the mystery. "You don't need to guess blindly. The person who is treating is called Wan Jinping." Wan Jinping? Lu Chen couldn't help but frown. This name is a little familiar. Lu Shi reminded, "He is the general manager of Hongwen Agency." Lu Chen's memory suddenly recovered, and he knew what kind of person Wan Jinping was. In Beijing's entertainment circle, Wan Jinping was really a character. His reputation in the media was not big, and could even be said to be very small. His name rarely appeared in entertainment gossip news, as if he was an inconspicuous small character. But people who know Wan Jinping well will not regard him as an ordinary person. The first time Lu Chen heard of Wan Jinping was when he was chatting with Sister Li over dinner. At that time, Sister Li mentioned that there was such a person who was slick and smart, had a wide network in the circle, and was very popular. Although Wan Jinping opened a management company, he was actually a high-level broker. He mainly acted as a middleman for investors and producers, and he was doing very well in both sides. For example, if a rich coal boss suddenly wanted to shoot a movie or TV series and wanted to use his mistress, but he did not know anything about the industry, then he found the right person to look for Wan Jinping. As long as he had money, Wan Jinping could quickly pull together a decent production team in Beijing, hire a second or third-rate director to direct, and spend 2 to 3 months to come up with a dozen episodes of TV series or movie, and then use his connections to broadcast it on television stations and cinemas. If necessary, he could also help hire a group of online promoters and media reporters to hype and promote, and a new celebrity in the entertainment circle would gradually rise. Wan Jinping's connections were very wild. Not only did he have private connections, but he also had connections with government agencies. He had connections with all sorts of people, but he was rarely exposed in the public eye. People who were not in the industry rarely knew of his existence. Such a shrewd person suddenly treating Lu Chen to a meal made him vigilant. "Do you know what's going on?" "Lu," she shook her head, "I just don't know, so I went to take a look." He said it was a good thing over the phone, hee. His sister's lips curled into a mocking smile. A night owl would come to the house for no reason. Lu Chen was not afraid of Wang Jinping, but since Lu Shi had agreed, he also wanted to see what the other party was up to. "Then let's go." Lu Chen picked up the coat on the chair, put it on, and said with a smile, "It feels like we are going to a Hongmen banquet." His sister laughed. "You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.